Hi, is this the Arby's corporate office? I have a meeting with. Come in, young squire, and let me regale you. I am the one they call the Tailmaster. Um, I'm sorry. I don't have time for this. I have a meeting. Shut your filthy whore mouth and sit down, for I have a story to tell thee. It was the year 2000. The Nintendo 64 was still the top console. Sugar Ray was considered a good band somehow. Limp Bizkit was a thing. And that's when something happened. Something nobody could have predicted. They made a good Marvel movie. You see, X-Men had come out. And sure, Batman before it. It made a lot of money. But it had so recently totally shit the bed that comic book movies were considered taboo. But X-Men came out, made a shit ton of money, and changed movies forever. And now, 7 of the 10 highest grossing films ever are comic book movies. And nerds rejoiced. And so I task thee, you and your friends, the Fellowship of Shitty Podcasts, to gather for one purpose: to discuss your 5 favorite comic book movies. But what if one of us doesn't pay attention and does like a different type of comic movie list? Then fuck that guy and his stupid bearded face. It's top 5 favorite comic book movies this week on Nothing Good.
Well, I don't know who the hell that old guy was, but that's a hell of an intro.
Apparently the Tailmaster.
Yeah.
His accent went all over the fucking place by the end of that thing.
Yeah, I don't know whose
Welcome.
stupid face he was talking about, but I have an idea.
Yeah.
Welcome to another wonderful episode. I've been looking really forward to this episode a lot because we get to talk about comic books and movies at the exact same time. That's a wonderful combination. Gentlemen, how you guys doing this fine day?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about this topic too. This is, 2 of our favorite things smashed together at once, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
For sure.
Yes,
It's going to be
agreed.
good.
I'm going to disagree with you in terms of the funness of this, because I've been fucking like tormenting myself coming with this list. What we're going to be talking about today. I have spent at least 15 minutes thinking intently prior to the start of this episode about what this list is supposed to be. Jeff, you nailed it, man. Like we have really become, adults in the world of comic book movies. Growing up, the thing that we were all kind of like a little embarrassed about, the thing we kind of got picked on a little bit, those fucking comic books, man. All comic books are for kids, or they're for nerds or something. Now comic books rule the fucking world. They rule entertainment. They rule pop culture. All the people who would give you shit for having a Spider-Man comic or an X-Men comic are now the fucking people that are all there with their bros on opening nights, after going to Red Robin, and are now sitting there front row of the fucking movie, So it's amazing how we've been able to like grow up through this and just see how it's come full circle.
for sure. And the merchandising just wasn't available when we were kids.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you guys, but I was picked on a lot for being a comic book kid. And now when I see like a gaggle of 6-year-olds running around with their Captain America and Spider-Man shirts, I want to grab one of those little fuckers by the shirt and I want to pull him in. I want to say, I got my ass kicked every day in 1993 and 1994, so you could fucking wear this. So show some goddamn respect. Also, tell your mom I said hello.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was. Listen, I'll be honest, guys. I was closet comic book fan. Like, I did not advertise it. I didn't. I was an athlete growing up. And there was not a lot of commonality with the guys that I would play hockey with or play baseball with or do track and field with or anything, where we would sit down and talk about what's going on with Spider-Man or what's going on with Batman or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because you start talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a 15-year-old and they're like, fuck you still talking about that shit about. So yeah, this was something where there's some people you could still have those Star Wars conversations with, and I did have a group of friends where we were all into professional wrestling, but I didn't have that comic book like brotherhood until really I met you guys, and we all kind of realized we had this love for this thing that was really strong.
Yeah, and there's two pieces of it. So one is, when we were kids, it was not cool to be a nerd, which is way different than it is today. Now it's super cool to be a nerd. And also now there's so much comic book related content. When we were kids coming up in it, it was just new books came out on Tuesday. There was no such thing as comic book movies, and even cartoons didn't really hit until the 90s. So it was a completely different time. And, a lot of us were either in the closet about it or the ones that were out were getting, picked on for it. But now nerds are king,
Yeah, I mean, as the Tailmaster said, I mean, the fucking nerds won, man, as it was, and I'm fucking grateful for it, because that's all that other shit is just temporary. But comic books, Stan, our main man, Stan, he forever, and you got to give respect. We should do a Stan Lee episode sometime, just to
for sure.
oh yeah, just kind of like just basically
Respect.
tell
Nothing
legends
but
of the man.
there. Yeah.
But before we get rocking, gents, let's get fired up. What are we drinking? I'll lead off because I'm drinking something different. I'm drinking the Bubbles Rosé Ale from the Ryan guys. A little sweet for my taste, but it's quite refreshing. So
very good. I'm drinking General Braddock's from Brew Gentleman in Brad, PA. It's their flagship IPA.
Beautiful. Mac.
Well, I'm going back to the beach, everybody. The weather is starting to get a little bit nicer here and everything. So I am drinking again some of my favorite beer from Weeping Radish. This is their red ale. So enjoying that here today.
Doc, why don't you tell us what you're drinking?
I am drinking the most boring thing possible. I'm drinking water. It's fine. It's for me. Got to get up early in the morning, so.
Well, since you're drinking water and you're the one that has to get up early, would you, sir, regale us with your top? Allow me to tell the listener the rules that we kind of pre-established that everybody but Mac listen to. We want your top 5. Shut up. Your top 5 favorite comic book movies, and you got one honorable mention. We could all go on for. I mean, on me personally, my list, I have like 8 honorable mentions that I had to whittle it down to. Right, but you got one, and your top 5 favorite comic book movies. Doc, would you take us?
Yeah, for sure.
Take us on a journey.
So
Doc, if I may, real quick before you get into your list.
What's up?
Okay, Drew.
I did. Fuck you. And fuck Drew. Just because we haven't said it in a while. So I did pay attention to and follow the rules. It's not my fault that in the 55 million text messages that some of our cohorts just flip-flop the words bunch back and forth about favorite, best, favorite. And but you know what? I woke up this morning and I chose peace. So with that being said, Herb, thank you for that moment. Noah, fuck you.
Oh, gentle, sweet.
Yes.
He's
Peacefully.
peacefully.
Like a
So-
Buddhist fuck you.
Peacefully.
Okay, so my honorable mention was really difficult because my number 5 honorable mention flip flopped multiple times. That was the hardest part of this whole thing. Like, what do I keep on the list? What don't I keep on the list? Anyhow, my honorable mention is just a fucking Turn of Swamp Thing. That movie, which I feel confident in the years we've all been friends, I don't think I ever really talked to any of you about my enjoyment and appreciation for Swamp Thing movies as a kid. But that shit, those movies, like Best Video on Penn Avenue in Wilkinsburg, one of the few movies I would adamantly want to rent every weekend was either Swamp Thing or Return of the Swamp Thing. I love the character. I love the horror element, the scary element of the character, the magic, the dark magic. So yeah, it's Return of the Swamp Thing. If you've never seen it, it's way less serious than the first one. Different actors altogether. Very kid friendly. But it gets an extra little nod from me because it was the first time I saw Heather Locklear ever was in this movie as a kid. So it gets bonus points for that. But yeah, Return of Swamp Thing. Excellent movie for being really bad.
Jones, you and I have had conversations about your love and affection for Swamp Thing. So I am not surprised by you saying that. And I do want to add, even though it's not in my list, it did get strong consideration because, I have gone back and rewatched those movies. I grew up watching those movies. And like you said, the horror effect, it's all practical, right? The makeup and the character and everything, right. I thought was phenomenal as a kid. I actually loved their portrayal of Swamp Thing.
Yep. The first one's good because any comic book movie with titties is immediately gets bumped up in my
100%.
Yep.
And shout out to my parents who let me watch it, and they shouldn't have.
Yep. Shout out to my dad as well. He's like, fuck it, I don't care. That and the Toxic Avengers.
Yeah, you can watch it. It's good.
All right, Jones. So who are we doing this honorable 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or everyone goes their honorable?
I think everybody.
Yeah, everybody did honorable and just kind of sort
back. I will hop in with my honorable mention, and it is strange. I'm just gonna say how I did my list is I made a top 10, which was difficult, and then I cut it off at number 6. 6 became honorable mention and then top 5. So it was interesting to see after introspection what came in, and honorable mention is Hellboy 2: The Golden Army. I think Guillermo del Toro is a fucking mastermind of everything he does. I think it takes the Hellboy franchise, which is a brilliantly drawn series of comics, and I think it takes chances and it pays off. Which after the emotional gravitas that the first movie definitely shouldn't have had, but did have, it was tough to top it. And so coming in an honorable mention for me is Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
Solid movie.
Nice.
So this. Oh my god, so fucking hard.
That's what she said.
Thank you. The thing is that my top 3 are like undoubtedly my top 3. There's no getting around that. Once I get past the top 3, trying to kind of go through and pick and choose, because I'm going all the way back to Dick Donner's Superman, going through the years up till we hit the golden age of cinematic comic book movies and just everything in between. So I'm going to go here. My honorable mention, everybody, and there's a specific reason for this, is going to be the animated TMNT. The animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Now, Jones, you and I went and saw this movie together in theaters, if you'll recall.
Love that movie.
It's and there's a reason why. There is a scene in this movie, everybody, about halfway through Act 2, where Leonardo is trying to track down the fucking Night Watcher, who is being played at this point by Raphael, because as Leonardo went off to kind of discover himself how to be a leader, the turtles weren't really doing turtle things. Now, again, there wasn't really any Shredder. There was a little bit of Foot, but that's kind of it. So Raphael took upon himself to not be a turtle, but to be his own character. And of course, Leonardo doesn't really give a shit about this vigilante running around doing stuff. So he wants to go ahead and stop the Night Watcher. Well, when he has this realization that's Raphael, and they're sitting there on the rooftop and it's raining and they're kind of counter walking and stalking each other. Jones, I remember you saying to me after this, like, this is what fucking Obi-Wan versus Anakin should have been in episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
I stand by that shit.
And they're sitting there talking to each other, and Leonardo fucking looks at Raphael and he goes, "It's because I'm better than you." And
he's like, "I'm just better than you."
And they just,
shit.
Okay.
They just fucking go. And like that whole thing to me, and I just remember sitting there in the theaters and just Jones like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" That for its complete, just that whole sequence and that time in that movie. And it's a good movie. It's a very good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. It's a good animated movie. It's got a good cast. It's enjoyable. That's my honorable mention.
I just want to jump in real fast with a fun quick story about when I saw that movie. That's when the Hollywood Theater reopened in Dormont in Pennsylvania, and that was one of the first movies they showed. So I feel like the incriminating evidence as long as it's past the statute of limitations. I got belligerently stoned before I went to see this movie at the I'm surprised I walked into the door. And as I'm standing there and I'm at the snack bar about to wreck it because I'm stoned, and I turn around and there's a film crew from WQED there, and they're interviewing people about the Teenage Mutant Ninja, about the Hollywood Theater reopening. And I made eye contact, and he's like, "Hey," so the guy shouts to me, "Would you like to be interviewed about the theater?" And I said, "Okay." And the interview I did made air. It's still on the WQED. Red eyes, like I'm a fucking zombie talking, just babbling about the Hollywood Theater. So I remember very little of that movie except that fight scene. But I remember can't believing that I got interviewed for the PBS affiliate in Pittsburgh. Well, I was high as a kite watching the Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah, and in the movie too, Mako is doing the voice of Splinter. The racism level is way down on this one than it is for the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. So you got Chris Evans as Casey Jones. You got Sarah Michelle Gellar playing April O'Neil. Decent voice cast. Patrick Stewart's in this motherfucker. Lawrence Fishburne.
Mm-hmm. Can't deny
Solid
it.
movie.
Jafar, what's your honorable mention?
Yeah, so for me, I had a hard time wrangling in honorable mention. My top 5 were pretty solid. And I mean, I could list 50 different comic book movies here as honorable mentions, but the one I'm going to go with is Frank Miller's Sin City. I was a huge fan of the books, and when they announced that they were making a movie, I was like, there's no way like they can be true to the source material. Like, it's way too graphic, and there's no way that they could pull off the black and white style with just a splash of red and a splash of yellow. And Robert Rodriguez, man, he fucking crushed it. He knocked it out of the park. The cast was amazing. It was so true to the source material. Like, it was a home run. The second one, not so much, but the first Frank Miller Sin City was fantastic. That's my honorable mention.
What a fucking cast in that movie, too. Right?
I'm sure it'll pop up later on as we discuss it as well. Doc, your number 5 all-time favorite comic book movie. Thus far. Let's just say that. Thus far.
And again, that's a really good point. So it's a flop between these two, but in the end, I think it's the emotional attachment that I have. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original live action, it's just I just connect with it on such a early memory level. We have an entire episode about this, so I'm not going to go into detail. But a movie, I wrote Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Enough said. I mean, it's just a great film. It's fun, a little racist, a little insensitive in some points now, years later, but still, it's still a fun film, and it does just the practical effects are fantastic. The puppeteering's fantastic. everything about it, just about everything about it's just so well done, and you could tell that there was some respect for taking the movie kind of seriously. It wasn't a joke to the cast and crew. At least that's how it came across to me. So that is 100% my number 5.
Yes, go back in the archives, dear listener, and listen to our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Still one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. It is a classic film. I'm gonna hop.
Yeah, me and Dave weren't there for that, but we have opinions as well.
I really want. I really hope one day we can just kind of do an episode where Jeff and I get to chime in on shit that we weren't a part of. Jeff, maybe you and I are able to do a Dave and Jeff like episode or two where we talk about some of that shit we weren't there. But
yeah, just to catch up,
just to kind of catch up. But
it wasn't like it was that many episodes. It wasn't that many. It was like a handful of them.
Wise man says forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Never pay full price.
Never pay full price, man. Fucking beautiful.
I'm gonna hop in here. My number 5 is a movie that I still to this day have endearment to me. If you ask me, when did the MCU truly start? It started with the one MCU movie that no one's gonna ever acknowledge as being a part of it, and that is 2004's The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane as my number 5. I think it's a solid action movie, dude.
That's a highly underrated movie.
Thomas Jane's my Punisher. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Like, I love John Bernthal and everything, but Thomas Jane's my Punisher.
It was excellent. As a straight up action movie. Take the comic bookness out of it. It's still a great movie, but you put it in there. They did Frank Castle great. They made him relatable. They brought him down to earth. Rebecca Romijn is super hot. Ben Foster, that was when he was trying to prove himself as an actor, and he nailed it in that movie. You can even tolerate John Travolta throughout the whole thing. Kevin Nash as the Russian, excellent. I love that movie. It's one of those movies that never gets enough credit when you're talking about comic book movies. One of the criteria for my list, the main criteria is the movie on? Do I catch it on? Do I see it in my DVD shelf? Is it in my digital library? And is it hard for me to resist watching it because it's that good? And I put 2004 The Punisher. And my favorite moment of the movie is when Harry Heck plays that song with Thomas Jane in the diner. And it's like how ballsy is it to put a moment like that in a movie like The Punisher? And it's just badass. Fucking love that movie. Matt, what's your 5?
This one, guys, was the hardest one for me because there's so many movies that I have a fondness for that I went back and forth. I thought about putting The Incredibles in there, but for me, The Incredibles, even though it's the best Fantastic Four movie that's ever made. It is a comic book movie, but it's not from a comic book. So I kind of discredited that.
Go ahead.
And I keep coming back to, there were 3 of them and I kept going back and forth through. So, I love Kick-Ass because it was really like one of the first R-rated comic book adaptations that they kind of did, and Nick Cage and Chloe Grace Moretz as Hit Girl fucking just nail it in that. And then I went to 30 Days of Night because I just thought that movie was just so well done. But I got to go back to Frank Miller, and I got to go with 300. Right. There's a lot of Zack Snyder out there when it comes to comic book movies.
There is.
And I have a lot of things to say about Zack Snyder, the director. But one thing I will absolutely say about him is that the motherfucker knows how to frame a shot. And there is not one frame of that movie that is just not visually just punches you in the dick going down the highway at 70 miles an hour because you just listed the last 6 songs of Hot Fuzz, right?
Throwback.
Throwing it back to a previous episode here. This one also has a little bit of a fondness for me because it's one of the last movies I went to the theaters with my dad. And my dad was a comic book movie. He wasn't even really a big movie guy. My dad liked the Steven Seagal movies in the 90s where, every time a dude's arm broke, it just sounded like a stalk of celery getting ripped in half, right? So like this was just something I was like, Dad, I got a fucking movie for you. It's called 300. It's based off a comic book, but let's just go see it. And my dad was just loving it because it was everything he wanted. It's just people just fucking beating the shit out of people and just slaughtering people. And it was just right up his alley. And for that reason alone, too, that movie has a very special place for me, and that makes him a number 5.
Awesome. Jafar,
Good choice.
hit me with that 5.
Yeah, number 5 for me is the 10th movie release in the MCU, based on a comic book that before the movie came out, nobody had read or heard of. Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1. And for those who can see my screen, right above my head is Baby Groot. And then over here I have from opening night of the IMAX release of Guardians of the Galaxy. That movie is so good from start to finish. The replay value is fantastic. The cast is awesome. They ended up playing such a critical role in the MCU moving forward. And fucking James, man, that dude can do no wrong.
He's extreme.
No.
Unless you get fired for doing wrong things as in your younger days.
Unless you literally do wrong.
Yeah, but if any of you guys have watched Peacemaker, or if you haven't, I highly recommend watching Peacemaker. James Gunn is just killing it right now, and I'm super stoked for Guardians 3.
Yep. Jeff, just going back to that, just the fucking Suicide Squad. That's the best DC EU movie that they've done. That movie is so much fun. It is so well done, and all those pieces were put in such great play in that movie. And I give him 1,000% of the credit. Like he got a chance to make a movie without really, because DC doesn't give a shit. We know that. They don't, like, they'll just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Yeah. Marvel has a very specific plan he's got to work with. When you gave him just a blank check and said spend it, look what he did. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, he crushed it with that.
Yeah.
That's in my top 5 movies, the Suicide Squad, the movies I didn't expect to cry in. The Suicide Squad, for Taika Waititi's cameo in that, I'm like, oh shit, what the hell is happening to me right now? Doc.
Number 4.
What's your number 4?
All right, so now we're getting into serious business, right? My number 4, if this were a best comic movie adaptation deal, this would probably be in the top 3. But I love this film. It's my kind of what you're saying about your criteria. My criteria for this list, and with any favorite I have in a film genre that we'll ever cover, my criteria is always, if I catch it at any point, will I just stop what I'm doing and watch it?
Yeah, just put it on, no matter where. Yeah.
Yep. An hour and a half. Yeah, and if I will, it's on the list on varying levels of excitement. But number 4 is easily Dark Knight. This movie is just such an achievement, like a cinematic achievement based on source material. It's so good. Like, even parts of the movie, like, no movie's perfect, like, in terms of like story beats and pacing. Like, even parts of it could have been better. It's still so good. Everybody did such a good job. Even Christian Bale, who, quite frankly, he ain't exactly the best actor I've ever seen, and he doesn't do a great Bruce Wayne, but he does a good job. Everybody does a good job. We can go on about Heath Ledger. The whole cast did an excellent job. Score is great. Shots great. Everything's great about it. So easily one of my favorite movies ever, honestly. And it has a firm place in number 4. I don't think it's ever going to go up or go down. I think it's solidified its place. Just as good as so, considering how good it is. If you remove the cape and the cowl, if you remove the tumbler, it's still an excellent film for what it is. A crime movie. But yeah.
Yeah, the overall character study that they were able to pull off with Heath Ledger's Joker and his Batman, like, it's just cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, for sure. If we were doing a best list, it'd be real hard not to put that one at the top, just because of how well the sound design in that movie is, much less Heath Ledger's performance, much less it's a movie with Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman in it, as well as supporting actors. I mean, you just got excellent. Yeah, it even makes Aaron Eckhart tolerable for 5 minutes. And Gary Oldman, by the way, fucking always so good. Harvey, get your hands off my son. It's like, oh, you feel that shit. And also, any movie that has Michael Jai White in it is infinitely better than any movie without Michael Jai White in it. He's hashtag always respond on that one. I fucking love Michael Jai White. We're gonna do Black Dynamite one day. It's so fucking good. Oh my god, it's one of my all-time favorites. But speaking of all-time favorites, now I did a project. This is my number 4. When I was bored at work a few years ago, because Endgame had just come out, so I decided to rank numerically. As you know, I love sometimes random data. All the MCU movies. This came in at number 2 of my MCU movies, and it is the only MCU movie on my top 5 list, because it is my favorite. It is, if it's not my favorite, it's my second favorite MCU movie, and that would be Thor Ragnarok.
Nice.
Movies
That may
is-
come up on my list as well.
Yeah, movie is fucking incredible. I'll save it for you to go into it a little bit more, but it makes you feel, it makes you laugh, it's fucking action packed, it's got great use, and it's the evolution of the MCU movies. You know what I mean? When we can take these established characters and put them in a strange spot and cast it out the ass and make you care about new characters just as much as you care about the old ones. And I'm right now going through the MCU with my kid. We just finished Guardians Volume 2. She loved it, and I'm just like, if you love the Guardians, right, and you love where this is going, I can't wait for her to get the Ragnarok, dude. It's gonna be so good. But that's was, as we were saying, it was tough to put movies on this list, but once it starts shaping up, it was hard to deny movies their place on the list, and that's how I feel about Ragnarok.
The whole elevator scene in that movie, Noah, like to me is that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just where Thor has that conversation with Loki, where he's just able to say, "You are who you are, and I accept that you are who you are. I know you're never going to change, and I don't need you to change to still love you as my brother." You know,
Awesome.
like that whole thing, and Loki's reaction to being fucking called out, like it is just the heart of that whole movie.
I think that's part of the magic of Taika Waititi and the way that he writes and directs. That even though everything comes from that like comedic angle, like he can still hit you in the heart.
He's good. Dude is so good. And I think that's, and knowing what we know about where the MCU goes with Infinity War and afterward, to know that elevator scene is the last real, conversation between the two of them, at least to date, it's fucking awesome. So yeah, Ragnarok, solid number 4 on my list. Mac, where are you at?
So number 4 on my list, I have to go with my favorite comic book character, and it's difficult because with Spider-Man, there have been some great iterations of the character. Into the Spider-Verse is phenomenal. I love everything Tom Holland's done. I haven't seen No Way Home enough to know where it places. So I'm going to go with Spider-Man 2. The purest portrayal of the comic book version of Peter Parker that I grew up with. And I still hold Spider-Man 2 as being, I think, the pinnacle of superhero comic book movies being made. The arc that character goes through, and just fucking everything with Dr. Octopus. I mean, they nailed, Alfred Molina nails that portrayal of that character. That whole subway fight scene is just perfect, on the train and everything that kind of goes through. As you said, Jones, is this a movie, if it's on TV, that I can just stop and it's on now.
No.
So I'm just into this. It's that movie. But I also never get to the point where I catch it middle of the movie, because if I'm going through the guide and I see that it's coming on, well, that's where my channel is going to be tuned, and I'm going to fucking catch it from the beginning, and I'm just going to go all the way through.
100%. I think Molina set the blueprint for like Marvel villains that would follow that. Yeah. They ignored it with Spider-Man 3, but then every MCU villain is like, that's the blueprint from Obadiah Stane on. Yeah.
I also think I think of the 3 Spider-Man movies, that's the one where Sam Raimi, I think, really felt comfortable making his movie. Like, I really do think that's his Spider-Man movie. The first one, you have no idea that you can pull it off. You don't know how it's going to work. Not to mention that they had to rework some shit because that came out after September 11th. And if you remember from the trailer, They had the trailer that nobody will ever see again. You know, Peter Parker catches a helicopter from the fucking bank robbery and, you know, webs it between the two towers of the World Trade Center. Like, that was the original trailer of that movie. So, you know, you didn't get Willem Dafoe necessarily being as Willem Dafoe as he could be. You get that in No Way Home. But I think this one, they're just able to go for the ride. And the studio, you can tell, didn't really interfere as much with this one. They let him make his movie. And that's obviously, as we know, where Spider-Man 3 really kind of fell. So.
Jafar, number 4.
Yeah, you know, the fun thing about putting a list like this together is there's so many movies. A lot of people don't.
So many.
When you think comic book movies, you think the MCU or the DCEU, but there's a lot of movies that were made from comic books that a lot of people don't even know were comic books. So my number 4 is one of those, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Fantastic film by Edgar Wright. Michael Cera does such justice to that character. And it's just a fun, funny action flick that's so well done artistically and stylistically that I think it has for me, it has a place on my list that anytime it's on, I'm doesn't matter where it is, I'm turning it on for sure.
And what a cast.
The movie's excellent.
What a cast all the way through.
It's
that
so good.
movie.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
I can't wait to cover that long form for the show.
Yes.
You know, because there's
Yes.
so many heavy hitters in there early in their career that it's just like, it's fucking staggers you.
Oh,
look
yeah.
into the cast.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, fucking excellent call though. So much groundbreaking. Doc, number 3, we're getting into the top 3, the bronze medal. Who gets the bronze?
Yeah. So who gets and this is where like the nitty gritty of like, you can tell a lot about a person, I think, when it comes to like favorite movies and like when you get into like comic book films. Number 3 is also Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And you know, Jeff said it really well, but few films, and everybody here, we're big movie people, so we like to suggest films to our friends or friends of friends or family members. That's one of the things we do. And you're like, you kind of get off on knowing that they enjoyed something that you suggested because this is so good. Check this out. Scott Pilgrim is one of the very few count on one hand list of movies that I to anybody. I'm like, it doesn't matter what kind of movies they even like. I'm like, you will like this. It's fun. It is a truly enjoyable. It's visually pleasing. The pacing so damn good. It's just good. It's well thought out. I mean, the movie is so fun, and I don't think there's been a single person that I've didn't come away going, that was a good movie. I didn't know what to expect out of that, but that was a wild ride. I'm like, yeah, right. Like it's the closest thing I think I've ever seen to a comic book adaptation. Like it feels like a comic book adaptation, ripped right out of the pages, and it gets a solid 3 spot for me.
Can verify on the
great minds think alike, Jeff.
The suggested, I had no desire to see that movie until I heard you monologue about it, Doc.
Sounds about right.
Because it looked cool, but I don't like Michael Cera. I didn't. And then you cornered me when we were drinking one night and made me promise you that I'd watch that movie, and then I rented it. I loved it. I think it's so good. Great. I love the soundtrack. That movie sounds good. It still shows up occasionally on playlists and stuff. Number 3 is a movie that would have been number 1 if the other 2 movies didn't exist. Almost certainly would have been number 1 if the other 2 movies on my list didn't exist.
Well, Noah, you're a numbers guy. Those numbers check
out, right? X2, X-Men 2 is my number 3 all-time favorite comic book movie, because the first one was cool. First one was groundbreaking. As the Tales Master told us in the beginning of the intro, it set up a bar. It became super financially successful. But my God, dude, from the opening scene with Nightcrawler, like fucking doing Nightcrawler justice in a movie, it had me hooked. Had me absolutely hooked, jaw on, like all the way through. Brian Cox's Stryker. The movie hits, and it still hits to this day. And all the problems that exist with the third movie and I feel very strongly about subsequent X-Men movies in in the Fox X-Men franchise. Talk about bombs after this movie, but X2, dude, oh my god, like in a cast and everyone fires on all cylinders, and this is to me, I mean, Wolverine, the character, right? Hugh Jackman was born to play Wolverine, and he made his name and became famous being him in the first movie. But the second one, he's like, I'm not just guy with muscles and claws. I'm gonna fucking knock this out of the park. X2, just oh my god, so good. Can watch it anytime. It is the highest possible rating I could give a Fox superhero movie anytime I would ever see it. It's the only one X-Men movie I will watch once a year, just because it's fucking perfect. And Magneto, oh my god, Magneto in that movie, oh my god. But yeah, X2, fucking amazing. So, Mac, what's your number 3?
I want to comment on that real quick here, Noah, because that's one of the movies I had a lot of trouble not having on my list, because I think that, you know, there are certain things in an X-Men movie that you would want to see happen to make it work. In the first X-Men movie, it was when Wolverine gets in the car accident and he gets up and he's got the big gash on his face and it closes, right?
Yep.
You buy it. But you kind of feel like a little bit in the first X-Men movie that they were starting to run out of money at the end of the movie, and the third act kind of
falls apart a little bit.
Took a hit from that, right?
It was messy.
The seminal images of an X-Men character in an X-Men movie are in X2. Nightcrawler going through the fucking White House. Wolverine going berserker when Stryker's men come into the mansion, right? Being in Bobby's house when he reveals to his parents that he's a mutant, and his mom looks at him and goes, "Have you ever tried not being a mutant?"
Like, read the social context there.
And that's what X-Men's all about, right? It's the social context of what those characters go through, and that movie just nails it. Yeah.
So
they did that in the cartoon too, but some of us don't think that's an S tier cartoon.
It is the greatest cartoon ever.
Yeah.
So incredible. Yeah. All right, Max, before we tear you apart for that, number 3. Hit me, buddy.
So I'm gonna go with the franchise, gentlemen, that I actually had a chance to be a part of. As a matter of fact. And it's not the one that I worked on. It was its predecessor, and this is our first repeat of our lists here so far, gentlemen. But I'm going with The Dark Knight. That movie is just so darn good. So much fun. And I remember watching it, not realizing that superhero and comic book movies could be brought to that level. And, you know, Heath Ledger's performance and the fact that we're not going to give the Joker an origin story. We're not going to give the Joker. He's not fucking, you know, a mobster who fell into a vat of acid. He's just an anarchist who is there to do what he needs to do and just destroy the system that he was born into. I always say that a comic book movie is really going to be as good as its villain. And there is no comic book movie that has a better villain than Heath Ledger in this role. He complements Christian Bale so well. They fucking blow up Maggie Gyllenhaal. They blow up the love interest halfway through.
They really did.
And just watching that whole scene, right? That whole intro, the whole bank robbery scene where you introduce the Joker, the audio design, the violin every time that's going to start revving up when the Joker's coming in. The only criticism I have of that movie is that I think it was a little bit longer than it needed to be. And I think they should have done everything they needed to do so that Two-Face was the villain in the third movie, rather than having him be at the end of the movie and kind of shoehorning him in. I felt like that piece just got away a little bit. But beyond that, I mean, it should have been nominated for Best Picture. That movie was just extraordinary that year. I watch it every time that I see that it's on. It's almost a perfect movie.
You have fair criticism as well. Yeah. I'll give you that one. Nice. Speaking of people who like to criticize others, Jafar, what's your number 3?
Yep. Number 3 for me is my second film from the MCU. I'm going to go with Thor: Dark World.
Fuck you.
No, I'm just kidding. It's
There's no
Thor
way.
Ragnarok. Even fucking
There's no way.
even
no,
Chris
he's
Hemsworth
buying
didn't
that.
like fucking Thor Dark World, and he
Yeah.
made a shit ton of money from it. No, my number 3 is Thor Ragnarok.
Look, the fight scene at the end of Thor: The Dark World does
so good.
does work, where they're kind of passing through the portals and the dimensions and shit. Like that's okay. The rest of the movie's total garbage.
We're not giving that movie any credit. Zero credit for that movie. But Thor Ragnarok is where it's at. It was such a departure for that character and sort of the stylistic approach that the MCU was making at that time. It was a bold move to hire Taika Waititi to even get involved. And I think if you look at how Thor evolved as a character from that movie forward, I think it had huge implications on the MCU as a whole. And I don't think if they would have made that pivotal shift of his character, that Thor would be in any conversation, really, when it came to the overarching theme of what's going on in the MCU. But the style of it, the comedic approach, but it still had that level of heart, and that it made you feel for Loki. It made you feel for everything that was going on there. I think Thor Ragnarok is a fantastic film. Solid number 3 for me.
For sure.
It's a solid ass number 3.
Taika took the one character that was the most non-relatable in the MCU and humanized him in a way that nobody thought could be done. And like you said, Jeff, it actually set the standard of what the character is going to be moving forward. Whatever other plans they have, it's all because of him.
100%.
Sure.
I mean, it's hard to think about it, but Thor was not a comedically enabled character before that movie. And it's hard to see him as any other way but that now, because he was so strong. And Hemsworth did so good at Ragnarok. And then his comedy added that much needed levity to the Avengers finale that it was just like, you can't imagine it without it.
Yeah, and if you look at, where Loki's character was prior to that, and the way that his character shifted as well, like if that would not have happened, would the Loki series even been a series that anybody cared about? And that character certainly wouldn't be the same.
Now Loki's one of the most popular characters. They turned the goddamn person babyface from that movie, and
oh, did they ever?
Yeah, for sure. And you wanted it. You wanted it in the Avengers, so you knew you weren't going to get it. And they teased it in the Dark World, but they fucking gave it to you. Oh, it's fucking awesome. It's awesome. Speaking of awesome, Doc, we're getting into the stretch, buddy. What's your number 2 all-time favorite comic book movie?
So my number 2, and this is like such a cool. This is a really fun episode, just to kind of look at it and then listen. I'm writing down every single one of the choices you guys have made, and just to kind of see the side by side. It's really interesting. And let's not pretend the X-Men are my favorite comic book property. There will never be anything that can. That being said, so many different levels. Logan is back to. I feel like. I mean, Logan. All right, listen. I'm not saying. I'm not going to say that I can say them in the same breath. In terms of achievement and skill, but dude, if you watch the first X-Men movie, not even the first Wolverine Origins, just the first X-Men movie, and then just watch Logan, the ability and the room that franchise had earned to be able to film a movie like that is really impressive, right? But outside of that, the movie's just really fucking good. Few films. It's one of the very few, again, like a handful that when Logan dies, spoiler alert, I fucking got misty eyed like a motherfucker, and I knew it was coming. But you felt that, and because I've been watching this character since I was 16 years old, and go through good movies, really, really bad movies, really, 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 really bad movies, and then this. And it was such a good payoff. And Hugh Jackman, God bless his soul, tall as he is an amazing Wolverine. The movie is just such an achievement in comic book movies. And honestly, I don't really like any of the other X-Men movies. But they're my favorite comic book characters ever. But that's because they are my favorite. They deserve better. And Logan was the first step to being better, in my opinion. That's just an easy number 2. Everything about it was just so well done and pulled no punches and did not care about your fucking feelings, so.
Listen,
Yeah, and it was such a far reach from what we got from all the other X-Men movies and what we got in Logan. And for me, like the X-Men were one of my favorite properties growing up, but none of the movies did it for me. And maybe it's because I was a Gambit guy and he was never in any of the movies. But
yeah.
I mean, he was, but we don't count that.
But yeah, I think of the X-Men movies, regardless of which generation we're talking about, I think Logan is hands down the best.
Jeff and Channing Tatum are the only 2 people that are upset the Gambit movie hasn't happened yet.
I was so stoked about that. And now it's
listen, Logan, Oscar nomination, best adapted screenplay. That's no fucking joke.
No.
Like of all the categories you can talk about where movie awards stuff are concerned, like the category that you can't fuck around with are the screenplays, the writing of the film, right? There's nobody gives a shit really about the writers. There's not a lot of favoritism or anything there. So if you're gonna sneak James Mangold in there for fucking, helping write that screenplay, like, and that just goes and shows you that the merit of that film.
Right.
No, I just gotta ask you, Doc, do you remember what you told me about that movie that made me want to see it? Because to set the stage, I have been very jaded by the X-Men movies. After X2, we all saw X3 together. We all know our reactions to X3. And I feel the way I feel about X-Men First Class and the movies that followed it, to the point where I was not going to see Logan on principle. I did not really trust them. And it's one of the few times you ever seriously yelled at me. And he said, all you did was say, Noah, see it. And I just, you can count on one hand how many times anyone close to me has ever spoken to me that way. And I was like, well, fuck, okay. And so I watched it. And for context, my wife has seen the first 3 X-Men movies. And she also feels that X3 was so bad she didn't want to watch X-Men Origins, good call on that, or the Wolverine, or any of the reboots. But she watched Logan with me, and my wife was bawling. We were both bawling at the end of the movie. And what Patrick Stewart in that movie, dude, with the idea to take Professor X and give him dementia, right, is like so dangerously amazing. It's like fucking the risks, dude. Oh my god. Yeah,
that's a nightmare scenario. No, I got another question for you. One point real quick, and then the question. Thankfully, Deadpool worked, or we never would have got, because Fox would have never let that property be rated R. But thankfully, Deadpool worked.
Deadpool made a shit ton of money.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, we can do this with Wolverine. Number 2, honest question, no bullshit here. Days of Future Past, you just really dislike that movie?
I didn't see it. I was done.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
It's not terrible.
It's not terrible. I mean, listen, of the movies that were made that were, outside of the original trilogy, I do like that one.
Let me let me put it this way, in not to detract. X2 was so really good. I really liked it. X3 was so bad. And then X-Men Origins Wolverine was so bad. With the exception of Leif Schreiber's Sabretooth, which was he did as best as he could with the fucking source material for having the movie with Hugh Jackman still in it. And then X-Men First Class, I really liked the first half of X-Men First Class, the first third of X-Men First Class, and I still maintain to this day that if that movie was just Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy chasing around Kevin Bacon without anybody involved, it would have been incredible. Because, oh my god, Fassbender and the Magneto backstory and going to Argentina, that's incredible. But the movie took such a fat, nasty, wet dump on my face after that point when you started having to shoehorn other X-Men in there, including some of the very worst practical effects I've ever seen in a high budget movie or in that goddamn movie. That even the whole very cool concept of Xavier feeling the coin as it goes through Kevin Bacon's face, which is cool on paper. And it's cool if that was the end of the movie without all the other bullshit in there. I was like, yep. And the credits rolled and I turned it off and had not watched a single X-Men property that I hadn't already seen previously. until Jones yelled at me and made me watch Logan.
Well, you're welcome.
So, as it no,
Tyrion Lannister is the villain. So, yeah,
I know Dinklage.
Yeah, the
is what
Dinklage
he's
Trask,
Trask,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool, which is super cool. I love me Dinklage, right? But I still have to sit through an X-Men movie. So one day, right? But number 2 for me is a repeat we've already had, and it's because it is stylistically one of the most amazing movies I've ever seen, and it is Frank Miller's Sin City by Robert Rodriguez. We all saw that movie together, and I left that theater. And like there's certain movies that when you watch, we all knew that we liked video and we like movies, right? But there's certain movies that when you can put them on your list of movies that made you want to make movies and tell stories and do it in an innovative way. And fucking seeing that movie, I was like, oh my God, like the risks that you took, but still paying homage to the source material. And Robert Rodriguez is so fucking good at what he does. I don't care. Even when he's doing Spy Kids, it's good shit, right? But to do that, everyone nailing it. And here's the thing to be said is, do you guys remember when Clive Owen was a thing, right? And that he was fucking poised to be the man, and there were a couple of bad choices. So that one go away. But this was P. Clive Owen. This was when Bruce Willis was still relevant. Jessica Alba was still new and so damn hot. And every single part of that movie fucking Mickey Rourke, part of the resurgence.
Mickey Rourke as Marv,
so
yeah.
Perfect as Marv. But I absolutely have to say that in addition to even if it didn't have the thing I'm about to mention, it would still be my number 2 all-time favorite comic book movie. But my all-time number 1 most favorite actress and my absolute could possibly be most celebrity crush of all time is Rosario Dawson, without 1,000%, absolutely. And despite the fact that we share a birthday, so it might be meant to be, and any of that other stuff, I don't even have to see a picture of her in that movie. I can recall her in that movie in my head, and blood just starts moving in different areas, and I start to stammer, and I lose track of my thoughts, and I forget where I am. And it's difficult to finish this sentence without wanting to talk more about it in excruciatingly awfully graphic detail. Thank God my wife will never listen to this podcast. But yes,
that's so Catano, man.
So Matt, you're number 2.
Just the sheer amount of Noah that's about to come out here talking about Rosario Dawson.
It's a whole other thing.
I mean, are we measuring it? Are we measuring it in courts, liters? Like, where are we going here?
They have not come up with a unit of measurement that would have the girth necessary for that conversation.
Is it like that scene in Scary Movie when she just gets plastered to the ceiling after the final, like when he finally gets to release?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Do it, Bobby. Do it, Bobby." And he goes, "Oh shit!"
Mm-hmm.
And he's just fucking eyes her to the ceiling.
Yeah, but crying at the same time. I just want to say, because he does not appear anymore on this list, that doing this made me make a list of what's my favorite movies of all currently at this time, and Robert Rodriguez appears 3 times on that list. So that's you know what I mean? Like just mad respect for everything he does, and I think that's his.
So
what are the other 2 of curiosity?
Spy Kids. I mean,
Desperado.
So
was just fucking amazing, so good, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico is on that list as well, because it's just for everything that Desperado does. He's like, oh, I got money to make Desperado now, so I'm just gonna do Desperado with a lot more money, and it's
that was run and gun the whole way he shot. That was so good,
everything. Rebel Without a Crew, dude.
Well, since this has appeared on a couple lists here, guys, what's your favorite thread in Sin City? Jeff, where do you of those storylines? Which one do you gravitate to the most? Which is your most memorable?
The most memorable for me is Elijah Wood as Kevin. And that whole angle. That and Marv. That's what stands out the most. Just because, like, you've seen Mickey Rourke a million times and you know what he looks like, and you've seen Marv if you read the books, and you're like, Mickey Rourke doesn't look like Marv. There's no way they're going to make that work. And then he looks like fucking Marv, and it's so well executed, and he plays the part so well. Like, it's so good.
Jones, what about you?
Yeah,
When you're talking about Sin City, which of those threads do you like the most?
I don't really like Sin City that much,
Ah,
so I
that's
don't
all.
remember much. I mean, I don't dislike it. I just it's a good movie. I couldn't tell you what happened in it anymore. It's been a long time.
Does it have anything to do with Bruce Willis, who's having a bad fucking day and has a real bad fucking headache?
But
and he's
there
playing a
is
police
one
officer.
line that has stayed with me. I think it was from the trailer. Fuck, it was it's the old now and nothing days. They're back, and for some reason that line always stays with me, and I love that line. What the fuck were the old days? What were the now? If I want to know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Noah, what
not
about
for
you?
me.
What was your favorite
He
thread in
already
that
told
movie?
us. Rosario Dawson. Any scene she was in.
Anything Rosario
That's
Dawson.
more than just a thread.
Can't never. Yeah. There's several threads in a row wrapped around thighs that. Anyway, story. Ricky Wark nails it as Marv. And again, any movie that, as I said earlier with Dark Knight, any movie with Michael Jai White is better than any movie without Michael Jai White. And I feel the same way about Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer nails it, dude. And you got it's a movie with the two most powerful B actors in 80s and 90s movie history. You got Rutger Hauer and Powers Booth are just wonderful supporting roles in this movie. So, but I'd have to go Marv.
Noah, you just said his name 3 times in a row. He has not appeared. No one said Rutger Hauer's name that many times within 2 minutes in like 27 years.
He doesn't appear, but he could be upstairs right now fucking my wife. I go up there, oh my god, Rutger Hauer.
Let me get in on that. That's what you're about to say when you walk in.
I love you in Lady Hawk.
Rutger Hauer's he's in the middle of eating sushi right now, and he just heard his name 3 times. Just went, fuck.
Yeah.
All right, Mac, what's your number 2?
All right,
Mac, what's your number
2? All right. So much to, as I always like to say, my beautiful, wonderful Stephanie's delight. Number 2 is, to me, the pinnacle of the MCU. The pinnacle of my favorite character in the MCU. I have watched this movie more times than I probably care to mention. It's at least I've seen this movie 100 times.
Can I guess what it is based on what you just said? Is it Winter Soldier?
Absolutely motherfucking Winter Soldier. On your left, ladies and gentlemen. I love this movie so much. I would put this movie on to fall asleep to, as I would go to bed and Stephanie would be getting ready for bed, and she would go, "Motherfucker, on your left again." Like, how many times we just be able to put it on demand because it was on when all the shit was on Stars, and I would just put it on and I would just kind of fall asleep at just random times. I just the portrayal of his character, stranger in a strange land, spy movie, espionage, Robert fucking Redford. Just killing it.
So good.
And the realism in the movie, which again is kind of funny to say when the third act is, 3 helicarriers being launched up into the fucking stratosphere. But like, I've always kind of said one of the things about the MCU that I wish they got a little bit more to, and they kind of did it with Shang-Chi, but they got away with it in that movie too, is in the fight scenes in that movie between him and Winter Soldier, the hand-to-hand combat, the knife flipping, the close contact, the punching and the flipping and everything. You buy it because it's actually real. You don't get a lot of that when obviously you have an Iron Man fighting another Iron Robot, and when you have a Hulk fighting a Thor and stuff like that. You kind of lose some of that groundness of the movies. And this movie is in a lot of ways very grounded. Bringing in Sam, bringing in other characters, fucking Gary Shandling as the senator. and the double cross, bringing in Crossbones, that whole fucking elevator scene.
Oh, awesome.
When yeah, it's iconic. There's a lot of iconography in this movie, and I just it is my absolute favorite superhero movie. It is not my favorite comic book movie. But I will watch it every time. Stephanie, you can't really hear on the other side of the door. She's motherfucking the movie left and right now because just how many times I've made her watch it. But yeah, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Nice.
Good call. Jafar.
Yeah, number two for me. So
Excellent choice. Such a
anyone
good
that has known me for a very long time knows that I am a diehard Spider-Man fanboy. Always have been, always will be. If we had this conversation in 2021, I would have told you that my number 2 is Into the Spider-Verse. Stylistically, their portrayal of all the different Spider-Mans, the way they played the multiverse, fantastic movie. I've watched it 100 times. But because we're in 2022, I'm going to go with Spider-Man No Way Home. And I know it's fairly new, and some people have not seen it. Some people have seen it maybe once. I've seen it a number of times. And as a Spider-Man fan, and to see 3 generations of Spider-Man come together in one, it was such high fan service for me. And it was so awesome to see that. And, you know, at least for now, that's my favorite Spider-Man movie. We'll see where it goes from here. They're already talking about how they're going to tie in the multiple Spider-Men into multiple MCU and Spider-Man projects moving forward. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But for me, number 2 is No Way Home.
I mean, you can't say anything better credentials for that movie. That it's the only thing that could be remotely considered new that we've talked about on the show. We called it audible on our plan and upended our entire episode lineup just so we could talk about that fucking movie. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the third highest grossing movie domestically. The only 2 movies ahead of it are Endgame and Star Wars, Force Awakens. So a lot of people feel the same way you do, Jeff. A lot of people have gone in a fucking pandemic. A lot of people have gone to see that movie.
Yeah.
I do echo your sentiments too about Into the Spider-Verse.
Incredible movie.
Yeah, so good. Just
all right, drum roll time, ladies and gentlemen. I am very excited because it is now time to reveal a round of our number 1 all-time favorite comic book movies. Doc, what is your all-time favorite top comic book movie today?
And we've all watched a lot of MCU movies, a lot of X-Men movies, a lot of Spider-Man movies, a lot of, movies based on characters that weren't like huge popular, like V for Vendetta and Watchmen. There's a lot of really, really excellent comic book movies out there. But my guilty pleasure, and still after Endgame and Logan and so many movies that I loved and I could absolutely watch, Constantine is such a fucking excellent film.
That's so good.
And there is so little wrong with it on every level to me. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this film. I own it on Blu-ray. I will just pop it in and just watch it, which I don't really do for anything. I just think I appreciate that. I mean, I'm a comic book person, much like many of you here. So, I know who Constantine is. I'm not a DC person by far, but I knew who he was.
Baby.
So when the movie came out, it was such a cool, they made a fucking Constantine movie? But why? Who asked for this? But man, was it so good. It approaches it, even though they give you a quick, brief origin recap, so many minutes into the film, maybe a half hour, maybe. The movie starts in a way that it does not give a shit if you know who he is or not. It just starts with the exorcism and just goes. Rachel Weisz is in it, which is always a good decision, to be honest.
Yes.
Everybody does an excellent job in this film. No one's phoning it in. I just love. I love the temperature, the color temperature of all the shots. He does not love that the movie is in the world he exists in. It just Game of Thrones you a little bit, and you just go making references to things that you wouldn't know about, characters from experiences that they had in previous issues and previous ball team characters.
And you don't care. Because
you just go, man, what does that even mean? It's a good film, and I think it is my absolute, without question, trumps everything else. And I actually, looking back on this list, I'm like, there's not a single MCU movie on the list. And I'm like, how the hell did that even happen? And I realized it's because, although I love all the MCU movies, even the bad ones, I don't know if I could go out of my way to watch them again. With the exception of the first Avengers, which I watched many times, to be honest. Maybe No Way Home. Constantine just has a depth to it that very few comic book movies have the nerve to have. Zero question. Yeah. Number one movie, To the Moon and Back.
Wow.
Yeah, one thing I love about doing a show like this is there's a lot of shit that we forget about. And I forgot about Constantine, to be honest, even though I fucking love that movie. But I didn't even, when I was going through my list, I didn't even like correlate like, oh yeah, that's a comic book movie, you know? And that's the beauty of something like this, that it brings that shit to light. And I'll probably go watch it as soon as we're done recording again.
That's right. It's so good.
That movie is so good. And I own it on DVD. And it's like, man, Keanu did such an excellent job of portraying that character. Incredible. And rumor has it he's pushing for Constantine 2 currently as we speak. So I'm excited about that.
I would love that.
Fuck yes.
Everybody would love that. Everybody would love that. Peter Storm. Sorry, Jones. Go ahead.
I was real quick. Now I'm looking at the list again. I realized that you tell like the type of person I am, I guess. Like my list, I'm capped in horror on number one, and my star here, my honorable mention is also horror, and they're both team members. I just fucking realized it. Justice League part.
Yeah.
So I think not do that on purpose, but apparently I did.
And I will say this. So first off, one of the best lines in this movie is when Constantine's talking to Rachel Weisz's character, and she's like, I don't believe in the devil. And he looks at her, he's like, that's okay, because he believes in you.
You should, because he believes in you.
You should, because he believes in you. And I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, and I feel bad that I don't know how to pronounce his name properly, but Peter Stormare?
Stromer.
The guy who plays Stromer, yeah. The guy who plays Satan in the movie. The best portrayal of Satan, I think, in any property.
Ever.
Minus maybe the devil in a fucking Legend. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the best fucking portrayal. He was so fucking good as Satan in that movie. So yeah, Jones, good fucking pull, man. Good pull.
Well, what else can I possibly say other than my number one pick for all-time favorite comic book movie is fucking Constantine on my list as well.
No shit.
Was easily when I started the list, it started as number one, and I tried so hard to bump it off, but it was such a fucking distance between it and Sin City, which was easily number two, that it is so good. It's one we're talking earlier about movies you recommend to people. That is easily one of the first movies come out of my mouth. Like, have you ever seen Constantine?
You haven't? You gotta fucking change it.
It's so good, and so many. God, yep, right there, flat out. Sit down, come over to my house. You got 2 hours. I'll order a pizza. We're watching fucking Constantine. It is so good. Every single part of that movie is fucking incredible. And when you're talking about things that have no business being, as good as they are, that movie, it's like the all the parts together are more valuable than the parts individually. Keanu is peak Keanu and does it better, but he's even more reserved for Keanu Reeves, and the imagery of hell and the constant suffering and the time lapsing, right? And whenever Rachel Weisz goes in and gets transported, and she comes back up a second later, and she's smoldering, right, from being there for what felt like a lifetime, being ripped and pulled and turned, and fucking the star-making debut of Tilda Swinton too. Absolutely, like and every possible concept of that, and how awesome the scene when he and Shia LaBeouf. We don't even fucking mention the fact that like this is the first movie where even Stevens guy became a real fucking actor, and fucking steps it up in this movie. And the scene where they're doing the fucking where the Army of the Dead is between Constantine and the Rachel Weisz giving birth in the pool, and he's got to fucking go with the holy water. Oh my god! So yes, without a shadow of a doubt. And when you said, I was like, "You motherfucker," because that's like, does anyone
So
remember Constantine? It's so. How could it not be? That's so yes, without a shadow of a doubt. With everything else, a distant to and beyond. My number one all-time favorite comic book movie is fucking Constantine. It's also still my number one all-time favorite movie poster ever. With the black and white and tie.
Yeah, movie poster's excellent.
Fuck yes, excellent shit. Number one with a fucking bullet. Mac.
Well, gentlemen, I was very quiet about this because this has appeared on our lists so far. It was number 4 for Jafar. It was number 3 for Herb Jones. Gentlemen, this is my number 1. It is not only the best comic book movie ever made, it is the best video game movie ever made. And I think one of the, well, I think it's easily one of the most underrated movies ever made. It is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Edgar Wright.
Fair, man.
Edgar Wright's just understanding of what this needed to be. And the pacing, the music, the cinematography. How we go from regular to widescreen when they go to battle and back. The fact that you're going to sit there and you're going to do something, right, where you're going to have a movie with 7 fight scenes in it. 7. When your general rule of thumb is you can get away with 3. You've got your fight in the first act, you got the fight in the second act, you got your fight in the third act, before there's a redundancy that hits. And, the fact that they were able to give you 7 completely different, completely unique storytelling fights, right? Wrestling. Vince McMahon wishes that they could fucking tell stories through their fights the way Edgar Wright and company were able to do this. The fucking cast in this movie, right? Let's just go ahead and just take Michael Cera off the books for a second, right? Kieran Culkin as Wallace, right? You're going to go ahead and give me Thomas Jane and a throwaway as the vegan police. You're going to give me Brandon Routh, and probably the only movie that anybody really likes Brandon Routh in.
And there's no Superman on anybody's list. Any version.
I am sorry. I am sorry if he could have put number 3 on his shirt to do that. Just Anna Kendrick and Brie Larson being tossed in there. Fucking Beck and the soundtrack in this movie. I own this soundtrack album. Good. I listen to it all the time. It is so If Sex Bob-omb was a real fucking band, I would have gone to see them like a half dozen times. It's the best Tekken video game. It's the best movie. It's the best Zelda movie. Gideon Graves being Ganon. They just do everything. The Zelda. I mean, I could talk about this movie for fucking years. We will.
Oh, we're doing that move. We're doing this
and we
will
will
for sure.
Just the fucking lens flare that they do when it goes to widescreen when they start the fights.
So anime, so amazing.
It is so. That's my point. It might be the best anime movie ever made too. It checks all boxes. And this is the thing I'll say about it here too. That I care about this. This is one of my all-time top probably 7 movies ever that I've ever seen. I love this movie. I will share this movie with. I do share this movie with everybody I can talk to about it. It is such a perfect movie. I wish this film got the love that it deserved. Over the pandemic, we had the 10-year anniversary of Scott Pilgrim, and they were supposed to do a big re-release and everything else. I'm thrilled I saw this movie in the theaters, and they did a table read, you know, and this was in August. This was when Comic-Con was supposed to be going on in like 2020 and everything, you know, hardcore middle pandemic. You're in the doldrums, right? You can't see your friends, you can't see your family as much as you want to. Shit's closed down. There were no sports. Like you couldn't go to the movies. Like there were no concerts. You couldn't do anything. But they did a virtual table read of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I remember for like the 2 hours that they did that table read, it had almost everybody there, even fucking Chris Evans, Captain fucking America, you know, showed up to at least do his part. I remember feeling joy again. Like just a joy of what life was like before all this shit kind of hit, and we all had to like relearn what our lives were going to be after this thing. And that's what that movie is to me. It is pure escapism, pure joy, and I can't say enough good things about it. I absolutely love this movie.
I look very forward to us being able
Agreed.
to cover that movie long form.
Yeah,
100%.
so good.
It's going to be so
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
All right, Jafar, you're the last one up. Number 1, baby. What you got?
Yep, closing it all out. So we've been spoiled with MCU movies over the years, 22 of them to be exact. And to see how the pieces started building early on, all the way back to the original Iron Man, and where was that going, and to see it all come together in Avengers Infinity War, which is my number 1 comic book movie. To see it all sort of come to fruition. You bring Cap back in. You see everybody scattered, but you're bringing them back together. You know, we knew for years and years that Thanos was this ultimate threat, and he was going to be collecting all the Infinity Stones to put the gauntlet together to kill half of humanity. And then to see him fucking do it after all the build. But it's one of those movies that I've watched so many times. And there's certain points in that movie, even now, like I get goosebumps watching it. One is when Cap comes out of the shadows in the train station. The other is when Thor and Rocket and Groot come down while they're battling in Wakanda and just start fucking everybody up. Like that movie is so good from start to finish. And it was one of those things, like at that time, everyone was expecting a happy ending. And then everyone dies. And then it's just black. There's nothing. And everyone's like, holy shit, did they really just do that to us? And I'm like, yeah, they really just fucking did that, because we know what's coming next with Endgame. But for me to start to see
Right.
sort of the fruits of the labor of 20 movies start to build towards what was going to happen with Infinity War and then Endgame, ultimately Infinity War is where it's at for me, number 1.
That's such a fun movie.
Oh, I mean, that movie gave you. I when I was discussing this with my wife, who admittedly adores the MCU just as much as I do, we discussed Infinity War is the empire of the MCU. It's the turning point. It does not give a shit about your feelings at the end of that movie, and you need it.
Oh, it hits you right in the feels,
and it you can't have watched the MCU to that point and not be so emotionally invested at the end of Infinity War that you don't care what happens next. But it gives you the things that you never knew you wanted, like the fucking dialogue between Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Peter Quill. For randomly, what master do you serve? Who the hell am I supposed to say? Jesus? Just like that fucking like of all that dichotomy there, like you never knew you needed it until you got it. And that's what the MCU is. It's like, oh, I never knew that the character of Loki needed to be a babyface until he gave it to me. or that the character of Hawkeye could be fucking have so much depth just by making him partially deaf, right? Like just these little tiny details because it's so fucking good.
So
1000%. That's excellent call.
So I think, you know, my favorite 90 seconds of that movie is Doctor Strange versus the Infinity Gauntlet.
Mm.
Like where the sorcerer, you know, of course he's not necessarily Sorcerer Supreme at this point, but you know, where they just go fucking toe to toe. Like I love, here's my dick. I'm gonna throw it at you. I'm going to parlay that dick with my dick. And here's some magic. Like just that whole sequence there, that 90 seconds of those two fighting each other are brilliant. And you know, credit to the Russo brothers who I don't know how you and Marcus and McFeely who wrote the script, you know, that team, the four of them, for taking that many characters, and you don't feel that a single character was underused in those two movies. And Jeff, I'll agree with you. Even though Endgame has the bigger payoff, I think Endgame is actually 3 movies. You know, it's 3 episodes. You know, the way that it's kind of structured. But Infinity War, I think, is the better movie.
Better of the two.
Better of the two. But just the character combinations that they gave you that you never knew you wanted, and now you want so much more of it. Was just beautiful.
I mean, Thor in there. I love that line where he's like, "He's never fought me." He's like, "Yeah, he has." He's like, "Well, he's never fought me twice." It's like and that it's fucking. And I can't wait until we eventually do the MCU, if only because to me, one of the things like on the list of all time things that somebody did even better that I could have possibly imagined that they could do with comic book source material is how the MCU treated Wakanda. Like, so yes, and I'm like I am so pissed to this day that Black Panther wasn't 2 hours longer just because I wanted to get into the Wakandan lore. Like, just give me more of that shit. And the fact that we got to see such a pivotal fight in Infinity War take place in Wakanda, I was just so grateful for it. I mean, it could have taken place on top of an. I would have been happy.
It could have been
right?
anywhere.
But the fuck did they put it there? Yeah, so good, dude.
Yeah.
What a learning experience here today to share a bit of ourselves with each other and the world.
Noah, before you go ahead and we head into the finale of this, I wanna throw just 2 special shout outs here.
Yeah.
To 2 films that without which I don't believe anything we're talking about here today would have happened. I'm going to go first with Superman Returns. Going back way to the 1970s, General fucking Zod giving us a superhero movie in which other superhero movies could come from.
Yeah.
And in that same mold, I want to give fucking Blade a shout out. Just to go ahead and say that if Wesley Snipes doesn't fucking slam dunk that character, we don't get X-Men. I don't think we get anything that comes after it. So
I
just want to give a little special shout out to those 2 films for, you know, really laying the foundation which everything else was built upon.
Yeah, there's so many movies I would have loved to have mentioned today. I think Batman Returns should get a special because it was how do you take a character, your title character, and the villain, and then flesh out a third character. It's the first real team up, major big budget because they made you invested in Catwoman at the same time too. But there's one movie I want to give a real special shout out to because I don't think without this movie that this podcast exists, because I don't think without this movie that I have the personality that I do, because everybody has that movie that they watched on repeat as a kid. You know, whether it be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or He-Man or something along the lines. But my movie
is it Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen?
It is not. It is not. Fuck Michael Bay and right in his stupid fucking eyeballs.
I'm sorry.
The movie that I watched on repeat as a kid for like 2 years straight, 3 times a day, that my mother made sure that I had a copy of when I wore through my copy to keep watching over and over again, is a comic book. And it was Howard the Duck.
Such a good movie.
And in that movie, the movie is a banger of a movie, but in that movie, Leah Thompson has sex with a duck And of all the things that you can pinpoint why I am the way I am, the fact that I watched that woman have sex with a duck probably 200 to 400 times as a toddler. I watched a woman have sex with a duck 400 times before I was 5 years old. So that's why I am the way I am. And that's why I am fantasizing and actively engaging Herb Jones into having sex with a 90s video game peripheral. And here we are. So I want to give a very special, the Legacy Award to Howard Duck for making me the man I am today.
Another cute Lucas film for you there, Noah.
That's all. It's all because of George Lucas and his weird neck thing. But we'll do Howard one day.
Oh, we absolutely
and we'll
do Howard the Duck.
And we'll do other George Lucas properties. And I can't see any reason why we should make it a point to make sure that we cover all of the movies we mentioned in our list and sometime in the run of the show. For sure. So, and we appreciate everyone joining us here today. We got some fun content coming up. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You just have to tune in next week and enjoy the show. I'll play our outro here at the end of the second. But gentlemen, any lasting impressions you want to leave the fine people with?
No, I just want to say thanks for tuning in. We talked about a lot of movies, but there's a shit ton more that we're barely scratching the surface. And best is not always favorite. Favorite isn't always best, but you like what you like. And hopefully, maybe there's a movie here or two here that we mentioned that the audience hasn't watched that will inspire them to go watch it. And that's really all you can ask for, It's a good time to be a nerd. There's a lot of opportunity out there for content to be ingested. So go watch some fucking comic book movies.
Let me add on to that. Unlike our music review episodes, where someone loves a song and the other one shit all over it, someone loves the album and the other shit all over it. There's not one movie that any of us mentioned on any of our lists that all of us didn't go, oh fuck yeah, that movie. So this is a rarity. Unanimous consent from the governing body of Nothing Good to tell you to go watch some fucking movies.
Well, even the bad ones, we like Howard the Duck. We're like, oh, fucking Howard the Duck,
That movie's not bad. That movie's not fucking.
I want to.
Or does it?
So I want to say that give when you're watching your comic book movies, everybody, the twos always tend to be a little bit stronger than the ones. So if you go ahead and you start getting into a franchise and maybe the first one doesn't quite hit all the right chords for you, make sure you stick with it to the second movie, because the second one typically is the one where they really find their rhythm and then fuck it up by the third one. But the last thing I want to say, everybody, is that all this stuff that we talked about here today is coming from a source. It's coming from the page. Go to your local comic book shop. Go ahead and throw them some business. There are some great comic books that are out there. I just picked up Keanu Reeves' Berserker. I can't wait to go ahead and kind of read through that. Yeah, everybody, not only is Keanu Reeves in every fucking comic book movie now, but he's also writing them, right? Go to your comic book shop. Go ahead and buy Watchmen. Get the fucking greatest graphic novel ever made.
Ever. Easy.
Go ahead and get Batman: The Killing Joke. Go ahead and get fucking Scott Pilgrim versus the World, or go ahead and get Sin City, and just read through and look at the artwork that these things we're talking about are founded on. You're gonna like what you see, everybody. You're gonna like what you read. You're gonna get a new hobby. So go ahead and throw them some business. You'll be happy you did.
You'll never regret it. Doc, final.
There is no shortage in the Jones household.
Fucking right, man.
We read.
You know what? When we post this episode, we'll throw some of our proper. What are we reading now, right? And what are some of the more recent releases? Maybe people can get on. But speaking of recent releases, every Tuesday on your same podcast network, the same podcast channel, whatever the fuck you want to do, we're getting out of here. Everyone, take it easy, boys, and take it easy out there, especially you, Peru. Fucking you saucy
sweet Peru. We'll see you next week.
Nation.
Nothing good.